Zaxby's Caribbean Jerk Chicken is just like a vacation in the tropics. Only without the sunburn. Or the dive-bombing seagulls. Or all of that pesky sand.
How'd it get in there?
Well, at least it tastes like the tropics. Enjoy our famous chicken tossed in a tropical blend of spicy habanero, fruity mango, and exotic island spices. The Caribbean Jerk boneless wings and the new filet sandwich meal. 2 more reasons you'll get a kick out of Zaxby's.
From Tally to Cali,
it's time
to wake up.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan. Corey Clark here as well. We work for Warchant.com. You already know that because it's Wake Up Warchant. Use the promo code Warchant30. Gets you 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminole sports source. I'm feeling pretty all right now, Corey, despite coming off a 3-day bender in New Orleans because I had a blackened and blue salad from Zaxby's on Sunday night going into early Monday morning as we record this podcast to bring the people what they want. Corey, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. It's was a very exciting Saturday night, and obviously, anybody listening to this show, I would imagine a very somber Sunday with the news from Kobe about Kobe. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I don't mean to be dismissive, but yeah, I had a pretty good weekend until found out that news.
Yeah, that was that's crazy.
You know what it is, and I know people don't tune in to hear me talk about Kobe Bryant, but like, I wasn't a huge fan of Kobe. I know you were a Lakers fan. You were just talking about how you and your brother were Lakers fans, so I'm sure you're one of the. There's a lot of people that think that Kobe's the best player of all time, and he had the 5 rings, and he's as good as Jordan.
No, he's not, but still.
Well, yeah, and I never bought into that. I've always thought LeBron was better. Luka's probably going to be better than all of them, it would appear. And, the Hawks drafted Luka, but traded him. Anyway, not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the thing about Kobe is I was never a huge fan of him. I didn't dislike him. I had no reason to dislike him. I mean, I'm a Hawks fan, so they were never in the Hawks' way of winning anything. But I was never a huge fan of him. He didn't seem like the best person, especially early in his career. Didn't seem like the best person off the court. And then on the court, didn't seem like a great teammate, maybe. Shaq got away from him. There was just, he seemed a little prickly. He never quite seemed like a very lovable person, to me anyway.
Hell of an obit you're giving here, Corey.
No, but listen, that's my point. So I wasn't a big fan of his. Again, that doesn't mean I didn't like him. I just wasn't a fan of his. But what his second act and what he was doing after basketball is what made Sunday so hard for me, because you could tell anytime he talked about his daughter in basketball, how invested he was. It sounded like me talking about Brady, except, he gave his daughter actually very good advice and knew what he was talking about. And that was so endearing. And I remember listening to him on a podcast, and you wonder how a guy that's that competitive is going to be able to find balance in his life. Like, what kind of not basketball player is he going to be, where he can't have that competitive, he can't fulfill that competitive desire anymore. And it just seemed like he put it all into being a great dad. And the fact that they died the way they died, either going to a basketball game or going to a basketball training with his daughter's teammate, doing that for them, that's the stuff that really resonated with me, and it's hard to talk about. It's hard to think about because he's just seemed like in the way he reached out to other young basketball players, the guys in the NBA. He struck a relationship with Trae Young. He seemed to be like Michael Jordan didn't seem to care at all about the younger generation. Maybe he did. You just didn't see him around a lot, high-fiving and talking and giving advice and trying to be a mentor to young guys. And it seemed like Kobe really embraced that. And it seemed like his second act, after he got the competitive edge out, he just looked like he was going to be focused on being a great dad and being a great ambassador for basketball, and not just men's basketball. I think he was going to do a lot of great things for women's basketball. He was going to give it just the attention that he gave it and how much it mattered to him. I think was going to really resonate. Hopefully, it still will. But that's what struck me the most after his over the last 3 years. That's what made it so sad. I remember listening to a podcast. He was on a podcast and he was talking about coaching his daughter's team. And he said, I told all the girls that when they go home, do everything left-handed, eat left-handed, try to write left-handed. Put on your clothes left-handed. Do everything you can left-handed. And he's not just giving that advice to his daughter. He's giving it to everybody because it mattered to him. And he wanted them all to get better. And he cared. And, most NBA guys you wouldn't think would, all right, my career's over. I'm not a big deal anymore. I'm going to have a hard time adjusting to this life of not being Kobe Bryant. But he seems so excited to be a Kobe Bryant the dad. And for him to be doing a dad thing that a lot of people listen to this, like me, I drive everywhere to go see my son. Obviously I don't have the means to do what he was doing, but he was doing that for his daughter and his daughter's teammates to get training or to go to a game. And yeah, you can use my helicopter. Yeah, let's all go. Doing the dad stuff like that was what really struck me. And, it's just a really, really sad day. And I think that's why it impacted me a lot more than I thought it would. Just the dad angle, not the basketball angle. I wasn't a Kobe fan I just wasn't a huge fan of the basketball player, but man, I was really becoming a fan of the dude he was becoming.
Well said, Corey. I don't have anything nearly as intelligent to add, so we'll just go ahead to the Florida State part of this show, which is why everybody is listening to the show on this Monday. Hope everybody's having a great Monday despite how things ended on Sunday. All right, I wasn't at the game. I was watching or following kind of on Twitter, and then I saw Florida State was up by, 6 or 7 points with a minute and a half. I'm like, all right, they got this one. Disasters averted. And then I saw the final score, 85-84, Florida State. Apparently they finished the game with no field goals in the last 5 minutes of the game clock. I'm not going to try to act like I know what happened in the game because I wasn't there. Did you learn anything new about this team? But I guess before that, just how awesome was the environment?
Oh yeah, that was great, man. It was really loud. The students were there. We've talked about it before. I really wish, now that Florida State is in its heyday, it's in its apex for this program, really in the history of the program. It'd be cool if they could figure out the seating. I don't know what they can do, but the booster seats, even on TV, they don't look the place was packed. It was full, but still there's a little few pockets that always show up on TV of people that just don't come to the games. Meanwhile, the students get there an hour early, and they were there an hour early, and they're loud as can be, and they're off behind a basket somewhere. Even still, I'm not going to complain about that, although I just did. The crowd was good. The environment was really good. They started out terribly. Like Notre Dame was up 15-4 in 4 minutes. Like they were just they looked lethargic. Leonard even said it afterwards. He's like, it didn't look like we had any energy on defense, and Notre Dame was just going right through them. And then, my man, Wyatt Wilkes, who I wrote about it. I might have tweeted about it too. I don't remember, but I definitely wrote about it. It was on Warchant on Sunday about it might have been the most out of nowhere performance by an FSU player certainly in my memory. I'm sure there have been other ones, but to score 19 points when you've scored, he had scored 8 points total in the last 2 months.
He went a whole month. He went a whole month without making a basket.
Yeah, he had made one basket in ACC play, and that was last Saturday against Miami.
Yeah.
He was just a complete non-factor on the court, just a complete non-factor. And then with Patrick Williams out with a toe injury, he had to play some, and then he goes out there and hits 5 threes. He's pump faking guys. They're flying by. He's doing a reset dribble. He looked like he'd been doing it all his life. He looked like Dirk Nowitzki out there, man, just calmly knocking down jumpers. And that's again, I don't want to harp on it too much. We talk about this all the time, but that's what's so cool about this team, man. You have an Anthony Polite against Virginia. You have, and he's become much more of a role player now, where you depend on him to knock down shots and give you valuable minutes. Wyatt Wilkes, you don't. And then he comes off the bench and leads you in scoring. In a game, you had to have every single all those 19 points because of the way it turned out at the end. Just really cool to see for him, because he's a guy that really does care. If you watch some of the games, you can see him on the bench. He's getting really upset when they give up a basket. He gets really excited when they make a basket. He is very engaged, and usually their bench is anyway. But he takes it to another level when you watch their bench. He looks like one of the guys. Not it looks like he is one of the guys that's talking to the coaches as the game's going on. Like even he's pointing out things and he's talking to them. Like he is really engaged in how his team does. And sometimes he doesn't play. Like literally he'll go, like you just said, he went a full month without scoring a basket in a game that mattered. And so for him to come out and score 19 on national television against Notre Dame, well, almost national television, it's the ACC network. When that's just, it's a really cool moment for him. He handled it really well afterwards, talked about how, I asked him, I'm like, how do you have confidence when you never play? I said it a little nicer than that. But by the way, we got to talk about Mike Brey's post game.
I haven't seen that, man. I saw Twitter blowing up, but I haven't seen it. Maybe
It's only a minute long, but it's nuts. But we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So you can actually even play it on the show. It's literally only a minute long.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I asked Wyatt, like, how do you keep your confidence when you don't play a lot? And he goes, it's all about the teammates, man. They always tell me every time I go in the game, take your shot, shoot it if you're open, shoot it. Pump fake and he's going to fly by and then make your shot. And he goes, the coaches and the teammates, all they do is fill you with confidence. He goes, at some schools, I think if you're in a shooting slump, it's up to you to get out of the shooting slump. The kids aren't going to say anything. The players aren't going to say anything to you. But here, they talk to you all the time about how good you are and how much you matter to the team. And again, when you want to know why your basketball team is 33-5 in the last 38 games, 33-5. That's a big reason why. They're not full of Zion Williamsons and RJ Barretts. They have some talent and they have some NBA talent, but they're not super duper stars. But they're 33-5 in 38 games, and they have a guy like Wyatt Wilkes come off the bench and score 19 points. I would have loved to ask Mike Brey, like, where was he on your scouting report? Did y'all even have a scouting report with him on it? What did it say? But Mike Brey left after a minute and didn't take any questions.
Disappointing, though. We had chances there at the end. Don't get fouled on that last one? And that steal? You get fouled on that? How about the walk-on Fluger at half court? Sometimes we're treated by the officials like we haven't brought football as a full member, but yet we get a full share of the ACC network TV. Are you kidding me? He tees up our bench from across the court because he's pissed off at us? I'm frustrated, man. And I tip of the cap to Florida State. They made great plays. I love Leonard. He's a good friend, and they're a great team. You got to be kidding me, man. Come on, man. We're in the league, too. We're in the league, too, now. Come on. Come on, John Gaffney. God. Congratulations, Florida State. You're fearless. Great team. They can win it.
Dude, I thought that was funny. Like, I don't think he was upset, but I don't think it was an awkward, everybody around the dinner table like drops their silverware awkward. I think I thought your laugh, the way I was reading on Twitter, everyone thought that like you set him off the edge and he thought you were mocking him. I thought he felt like you were supporting him. He's like, yeah, see, you know what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous. We brought football to the table.
It was really bizarre and it was a weird press room because, a lot of, Ira was out. Ira was on press row. Tim was out on press row. Kurt from the Democrat was out on press row. They were still writing their stories. And Brey came in really early. You've been in there sometimes. Sometimes it'll be 25 minutes before the opposing coach comes in.
Yeah.
This seemed like 8. Like people were still getting set up and he walks in and he starts talking before he's even sitting down. He starts talking. And what's crazy is, me, Aslan, I'm not the first guy to think, oh, I should video this.
Yeah. You
weren't there. And I'm like, you know what? The way that game ended, there was some weird. There was a technical. There was the stuff at the end. They had a shot clock violation where Florida State, the clock operator actually made a mistake and only reset the clock to 20. So Notre Dame's chucking up an air ball as the shot clock winds down when they should have had an extra 10 seconds, but nobody caught it. This was like with 2 minutes left to go in the game. So pretty important possession. Anyway, so the way the game ended. I think Florida State's last basket might have been the technical free throw. But so he was upset. I figured, there's a chance he might say something here. So just, me being the intrepid reporter that I am, Aslan, I said, you know what, I'm going to video this. Just let's see what happens. And then I got that 1 minute of gold. And what's crazy is, he said that thing about it's almost like I can't remember exactly how he phrased it. I know we just listened to it, but he's like, it's almost like we don't play a full football schedule, but we still get all the money from the conference. And I thought, number one, that's a funny line.
It is.
But literally nobody else laughed. Like they either didn't understand what he was saying, or I was completely, I was completely on my own and laughed when I wasn't supposed to.
No,
but I don't think I did.
No, dude.
I thought
he felt like, okay, somebody gets me. Like that what I'm trying to, convey here just resonated with somebody.
Yeah, so I think what my point was, there's a lot of younger people that cover the basketball program.
Right.
Maybe people that don't understand and I'm not trying to, diminish anyone, but there's some student reporters and there's a lot of people in there that maybe don't understand the dynamics of Notre Dame football, ACC payouts, the ACC network, all that, and why he might think that Notre Dame gets the short end of the straw because they won't commit fully to being an ACC member, which obviously I think was a crazy, loony conspiracy theory. But anyway, I thought it was funny, so I laughed. And my point there was that, like, number one, no Notre Dame writers were there at all. So that might have been another reason why I didn't sit and stay and answer questions. But then none of, like, the older type reporters were in there as well. I think if we'd have been in there, like if you'd have been in there, you might have laughed. Maybe not as loud as I did. I'm kind of embarrassed that I laughed as loud as I did. I'm not really that loud a laugher. But people all over the internet, either on the message boards or on Twitter, is like, man, that was savage, Corey, laughing at him when he's breaking down. I'm like, man, I think he was trying to be funny. In his whole tone the whole time, like, he's upset. There's truth to what he's saying or truth in the way he feels. But he was doing it in a way where it seemed half joking. Like, I'm really mad, but I'm gonna talk like a professional wrestler. Come on now.
I'm with you. I agree. Yeah, I think this is much. I like Mike Brey, and when I saw this, I'm like, oh man, this is a bad look from my guy. But no, because the way it's you sound like you're laughing loud because you're filming it. It's on your phone.
Well, yeah. So it's my mouth is literally
Exactly.
2 inches from that phone.
Yeah, he was just kind of like, "Can I get a witness?" And then you laugh, and then he's like, I'm talking exactly what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous. So, anyways, was it ridiculous? Did they get hosed?
No, look. Before the last 5 minutes, Notre Dame had shot twice as many free throws as Florida State. And Notre Dame isn't a team that just attacks the basket a lot. I thought there were some very questionable calls that went against Florida State late in the game. He talked about they called a travel that might have been a travel. I never saw a replay, but I think that's where the technical came in. Was they called a travel at midcourt? A guy was dribbling the ball at midcourt, and they called a travel. That dude, Pfluger, I think is his name, lost his mind and really should have been kicked out of the game. Like, he kind of went nuts, and then Brey went nuts, and they gave a technical to the bench. And he was upset about that. He's like, the guy across the court calls a technical on us just because he's pissed at us. And then he said we got a steal on the inbounds play. Wasn't that a foul? That looked like a foul. And I just think at the end of the game there was some contact at the rim when they're trying to go ahead with 5 seconds left, and that wasn't called. But I think the right team won. Florida State just completely melted down, and they usually don't. I mean, look, man, we're covering a team that always has won 9 straight overtime games. They usually play pretty well down the stretch. This is kind of this is their thing. And it's just weird, man. They got up by 14 points, I think, with 6 or 7 minutes to go. And you're like, man, wouldn't it be weird if Florida State actually just cruised to a victory? And no, yes, it would be weird because that never happens. So they kind of melted down. They missed a bunch of layups. And then at the end, Raekwon was just awful getting the ball inbounds. And that was another thing. I thought he got called for a 5-second right there at the end with 16 seconds left. That seemed like a quick 5-second to me, almost like a makeup because they felt bad about the technical or something. But hey, man, Notre Dame's lost. I think that was their 8th loss, and 6 of them have been within by 5 points or less. They've had 2 1-point losses and 2 2-point losses. So they kind of figure out a way to lose those close games. Florida State kind of figures out a way to win those. And that worm can always turn. But, I think it was just a culmination of Brey being really frustrated at how close they are to being 15-4.
Yeah.
But they aren't because they keep losing by 1 point or 2 points.
It was bizarre when he starts, canvassing the room about, what do you guys think about the foul? That one on that guy. Was that a foul? What about the walk on Pfluger? Yeah, what do you think about that? That was bizarre. But yeah, I mean, hey, it happens. I'm not the officiating guy. Unless there's really egregious things like, I don't know, like Miami, Ohio State national championship game. That's the kind of stuff that you can lose sleep over, and I think you can rant and rail about forever. I'm not the guy that thinks that, I'm the minority that thinks that referees are never going to call holding on Florida State's opponents.
It makes so little sense. How big a win a win it would be for the ACC if Notre Dame won at Florida State? All of a sudden, then Notre Dame has a chance to be another tournament team.
That's not good. I mean, you got a team that's number 5. We're the cash cow now, baby. We're
Oh, man, they
catbird
don't
seat.
care. Trust me, the ACC isn't like, oh yeah, Florida State's basketball is where it's at. Like I'm just saying, there would be no conspiracy. Make sure Florida State wins. That's never happening ever. And yeah, the referees aren't ACC referees. Like they're Southern region referees. Like those guys probably will referee an SEC game or next week, and then maybe an ACC game. It's not just like the ACC has their own set of officials. So anyway, I get that he was upset, and he's going to get fined, which I'm sure it's worth it to him. But he did also say, like, hats off to Florida State. They're fearless. They could go out. I think he said as he's walking out the room. I don't know if it's audible or not, but I think he says they can go all the way. As he says, they're fearless.
Yeah,
literally as I film him walking out of the room. But yeah, it was funny afterwards because that one obviously the Brey video got, I think as I'm looking at it right now, 18 times more views than the Hamilton video.
Oh yeah,
18 or 19,000 views. Yeah. When I was telling Iris, like, did you do that? Because Ira doesn't think maybe might have the best work ethic or the best reporter's instincts. And I'm like, yeah, man, of course I did. It's a big night for me and Wyatt Wilkes. And he goes, well, you doing that is as equally as surprising as what Wyatt Wilkes did. So, that's how much he believes in me. But I got it done. I got it done for the brand.
It's fantastic.
I got it up quick too.
And I monetized it. I switched it over when I was like on Bourbon Street arguing with my brother. It was a beautiful thing. Teamwork.
Oh, man, perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of Balsa, looks like he actually played in the game. 6 points, 2.
Yeah, no, he looked good. He looked good. I'm trying to think. MJ got hurt and barely played in the first half. He took like an elbow to the back of the neck or something, but then came in and played in the second half and was pretty good. Vassell didn't shoot a lot, but was his normal self. The story was Wilkes. Polite knocked down 3 threes because that's what he does. I mean, Florida State was 12 of 18 from 3. And normally when you shoot like that, when Florida State shoots like that, they're going to beat everyone by a comfortable margin. This one, they just couldn't. They didn't play well defensively. Notre Dame kind of carved them up, and they made some big shots late and some tough shots late. Mooney kid's really good, and I just think they kind of came unhinged in the final 5 minutes, and it would have been an awful loss. But now it's just like kind of a footnote. Like, well, all right, whatever. They still won. They're 17-2. They had a 6-point lead. Trent made 2 big free throws to put them up by 6. And then the kid makes a crazy step back 3 just because, of course, he does. And then Raekwon is inbounding the ball, gets it stolen from their center. The center just steals the ball and lays it in. All of a sudden, it's a 1-point lead with 16 seconds left. And then Raekwon gets a 5-second count on the next one. So then Florida State, who hasn't played defense well all night, for the final 17 seconds with no timeouts, has to play defense at the end. And I think Notre Dame went 0 for 4 in the final 16 seconds. They played really well defensively at the end. And again, there's something to that. There's something to finding a way to win. It would be nice if they found themselves a little bit. But while they're going through, and it's weird, it feels like they're going through a little bit of a rut. Like they haven't, Virginia, they didn't play all that well. Miami, obviously, they didn't play well, except in the important stretches at the end.
And a huge layoff between Miami and Notre Dame game too.
And they came out horrible to start both halves, but they found a way. And they're 3-0, and they played 3 straight games where you don't feel they played that well, and they've still won them all. So while they're in a bit of a rut, to still be able to get a record to 17-2 again says that. This is a pretty darn good basketball team, man. They need to find themselves a little bit. They need to start playing better. But right now, you'll keep stacking on the wins until you can figure it out.
And this is a tricky stretch. So they got Virginia on Tuesday at the John Paul Jones Arena, and then they got Virginia Tech, which could be a little sneaky trap. North Carolina, I don't know how close Cole Anthony is coming back. Home against Miami, and then you got Duke. I think those 3 games, the Virginia Tech, and North Carolina game, that gives me a little bit of concern. Or maybe I'm just thinking that this isn't the new age Florida State team. But the next 5 games, that's I guess maybe we'll see just how battle tested they really are.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at the next 5 games, Virginia Tech, they should all be. Those 2 should be coin flips, in my opinion. It's just really hard to win on the road. Mm-hmm. Virginia Tech's better than Miami, and Florida State struggled to beat Miami. And Virginia Tech can hit 16 threes. And then Virginia's Virginia.
Yeah.
So neither one of those two. I mean, saying that meaning every game's going to be close. Every game's going to come down against Virginia is going to come down to the final minute. So they could lose both those games. They could win both those games. They feel like coin flips. No, North Carolina, you would like to think they'd have a shot to kind of win comfortably, but man, it's North Carolina, and if Cole Anthony's back, who knows? And then you got at Duke, and then you got, I think, Miami at home. So that's a 5-game stretch where you hope, if things go right, maybe you go 3-2. And you'd like, well, that wouldn't be great if you only go 3-2 or 2-3 during that stretch. Well, if you go 3-2, that means you're 20-4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're doing all right. Things are still looking up, but they just you hope they have it. You hope they find a little bit of what they had against Louisville. And by the way, that Louisville team is awesome now. They look really good.
Yeah.
But you hope they find a little bit of what they had there in these next 2 or 3 weeks. But to be honest with you, does it matter? As long as they get to the tournament, hopefully you get a high seed, top 4 seed.
Yeah, man.
Maybe that guarantees you're in Tampa. But then, just find it at the right moment. We've seen the ceiling now, so we know how good this team can be. It's in a little bit of a lull right now, it seems like, and they still are finding ways to win games. So that's, again, like I said, that's a good sign. You just want to try to get to as many wins as you can. I know it's a stupid thing to say, but I'm going to keep going with the sentence. You want to try to get as many wins as you can before March, so that no matter what happens in the ACC tournament, your seeding for the NCAA tournament is a 2 or a 3. And it would be awesome if they could win the ACC conference regular season. That would be incredible.
Absolutely.
But, I don't, if they don't pick it up, really, if they don't pick it up, I think some losses are going to come. They got to figure out how to play better for longer stretches. But, again, what's cool about them is if somebody is struggling, if Patrick Williams isn't playing, Raekwon is playing horribly in the first half. Malik Osborne had his probably worst game as a Seminole. Oh, well, let's just throw in Wyatt Wilkes, and he'll get us 19. I mean, that's just it seems like that. I'm waiting for like Raekwon Evans to have a 26-point outing, like something just goofy like that, because it just seems like every player on the team, they're going to have at least 1 or 2 moments this year where you can say, well, they wouldn't have won the game if it wasn't for him. And Raekwon Evans hasn't had that moment yet, so maybe it's coming.
Yeah, like who's on deck? He's on deck. Olenicek's on deck.
I think Boss has had some nice moments, but yeah, you mentioned him, man. It's real. You forget. I mean, you start projecting what he's going to be in a couple of years. And I know we're going away to a different kind of sport where it's not so big man dominated, but I think he can be a better rim protector than he's shown. And he's just got some skills, man.
Yeah.
He is not just a 7-foot stiff. Like, he's got some serious skills. He's got some bounce. He's got some quick, sneaky athleticism. Like, he gets up quick for a 7-foot guy. Man, he's going to be a problem in a couple of years. Really, a real big problem. Because he's literally and figuratively. He's just got game to him, man. He knows how to play. And I think he's a guy, could be a guy that averages close to a double-double. I think he could average 12 or 14 points before he's done here if he plays enough minutes. But he's a big deal, man. Them getting him back, that was a big deal on Saturday night, because as bad as I thought they played defensively, especially for a long stretch of the second half, they kept the Mooney guy off the boards. And when you can throw 2 7-footers and power forwards at him like Florida State could, that really neutralized him a little bit.
Speaking of which, last note for me from the hoops. My buddy Brian, who listens to the show now because Dallin Cuff was on the show a few weeks ago, brought him into the fold. I bet you were at the game last night, he texted me, so you probably didn't watch the telecast on ACC Network, but it was painful to watch. All they talked about was Mooney the entire time. It was awful. I basically hate that kid now because they wouldn't stop hyping him up even though we held him off the boards. They should have put Dallin out there. By the way, Notre Dame's coach is a feminine hygiene product. The press conference rant was a joke. They shot double free throws.
Yeah, they shot a lot more free throws than Florida State, and they made almost all of them. It was nuts how well they were shooting. Yeah, I'm not. Look, it was off the record, so I'm not going to say anything that was said. But the reaction that Leonard Hamilton had when I told him about Brey's press conference was really funny. And I'll leave it at that, because I can't really, obviously nothing was on the record. But it was it was really funny, and you kind of understood where he was coming from, but I understood where Leonard was coming from. But yeah, man, that game wasn't about the officials. If Florida State, if anything, I thought it was a little bit slanted the other way. I think if Florida State, I think they shot 8 free throws until like the last 2 minutes of the game. And it's not like they weren't going to the basket. They were going to the basket. But, blame themselves. Raekwon at 13. I should point that out. Number one, Raekwon had those 2 awful inbounds plays, and we've been hard on Raekwon a little bit. I know we've definitely been hard on him on Seminole headlines. He's got real ability in him, and if you watch that second half, you see it. He had 2 or 3 really nice drives to the basket. He hit a 3. He knows what he's doing on defense, and he's a much better defender than you would probably think given his size. He can move a little bit. He can block shots. He can get steals. But anyway, he had those 2 he had the 2 terrible turnovers. And also on the other end, he might have missed 3 not point blank, but shots that you have to hit. Like they were playing a zone. They'd get it to Raekwon in the paint, one-on-one with one defender who wasn't trying to foul him. Raekwon kept rising up for like 4-footers. He's 6'9". We're talking about 4-footers off the glass, and they just kept spinning out. He must have missed 3 or 4 of them in the final 4 or 5 minutes. And he made the 2 awful plays on the inbounds, although I'm still not sure about the 5-second call. But kudos to him. When the game was on the line, he blocked somebody at the rim when they were only up by 1, and then he's the one that challenges the 3 at the end without fouling. Like he's big, he's big. He challenges the shot, but he scoots by him so they don't call the foul. And he played really good defense on that final possession. So even that's a learning moment, a teaching moment. As poorly as he played down the stretch, he also helped them win the game. He scored the 13 points, and they needed all 13. And he played really good defense on the final possession.
All right, wrapping things up, recruiting-wise, Florida State made a splash, I guess you could say, or whatever you want to call it. They got a verbal commitment from Corey Wren out of Harvey, Louisiana, John Curtis High School out there. He was previously committed to Georgia. So if you look at stars and you're like, well, he's just a 3-star. He was committed to Georgia for the better half of a year and was on campus this past weekend, committed to Florida State and Mike Norvell. He's pretty fast, Corey, apparently here according to milesplit.com, which is like a amateur track thing. He moved up to number 2 in the United States in the 100-meter dash after he clocked in a swift, wind-legal 10.41 in the finals of the 100-meter dash at the All-State Sugar Bowl Classic earlier or last year, rather.
Like last year, like
2019.
Like January of 2018 or 19 or like December of 2019?
March of 2019.
Wow. So you're saying 10 months ago he was running a 10.4?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, that's legit, folks. It's not quite Kermit Whitfield, but it's in the ballpark. 10.4 for a high school junior is really moving. Like really, really moving. Like almost to the point where he could just be recruited to Florida State as a track athlete. And we all know how good Florida State's track program has been and apparently is again. I don't think he's quite at that level, but he's really close. Yeah, man. That means he's one of the fastest players in the country. So that's good. You need to recruit some speed.
It was the second fastest high school time in the country.
But you know how sometimes track guys, it always translates. If they get out in the open, they're going to be fast. Mm-hmm. But does it translate with pads and a helmet on? And if you watch his highlights, man, it sure looks like it does. Mm-hmm. Everybody else looks like they're in slow motion, like they're in quicksand, and he's sprinting past them. So yeah, man. 3-star, whatever, Georgia commit, whatever. Speed always plays, and that guy's really, really fast. When was the last time Florida State had a Corey on the football team?
Durden? Was
it Corey Simon?
Corey Durden.
Oh yeah, golly, Corey. He didn't spell it right though.
Yeah,
he doesn't. He spells it without the e. I'm talking about a Corey with an e.
A true Corey.
True Corey.
I think Corey Simon. I can't think of any other. Corey Niblock. But I think Corey Niblock might have been a Cory too.
He was. That doesn't count either. He was vowelless, except for the O. But yeah, Corey Simon, Corey Fuller, Corey Sawyer, all they spelled their names correctly, obviously.
The greats.
So it's good to see another Corey spelling his name correctly coming to Florida State.
Yeah. He's the number 18th athlete, according to Rivals.com. So that's good, man. That's good. Build up a little momentum for this class. Again, Corey was talking about one of the fastest guys as a high school junior. He's a senior now. He's class of 2020.
Yeah, but he ran that. That's my point. Is he ran that time as a junior?
Right. Well, I just want to clarify that the people that might think that they might, well, is he a 2021 kid? No, he's 2020. He's on the. Hopefully, he'll be on the books in February when when the signing day that we've all been so used to kind of rolls back around. So that's a nice little shot in the arm for the Noles, man. Yeah, maybe a little Tyreek Hill without some of the baggage, hopefully, right? I mean, I think that's what I don't know if that's what he comps to, but this day and age, when you think of someone that's that fast, maybe I should think of Kermit, sweet Prince.
I thought when you watch Kermit as a freshman, not that anybody cares about my opinion, I guess, but on this matter, but when you saw Kermit as a freshman, they ran the toss sweep with him against Syracuse and he goes 78 yards. Mm-hmm. He obviously had, I think, the 2 or 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown. He just looked electrifying.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow, this guy is going to be a weapon for 3 years. And then he didn't do anything as a sophomore. And then never really materialized into a great football player. And I just thought he was going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And he was okay, but it seemed like his freshman year was probably his most electrifying year.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't think of a lot of there. He had a few memorable moments as a junior and a senior, but when he was a freshman, man, I thought, holy cow, this guy's unbelievable.
It
didn't quite work out that way.
I think the only other play I remember, I think he scored on an end around against Ole Miss.
Oh yeah, maybe that sounds about right. I know he had one against. He had another one as a freshman against NC State, I think, on an end around, and then he had the kick return against Wake Forest, where he dropped the ball before he got to the end zone, but they didn't review it. So anyway, hopefully this guy is even better than Kermit Whitfield, but he's certainly in the realm of in the speed category. He's very similar. He's got similar speed that Kermit had coming out of high school. Not quite at that level, but close.
Like, if we're still on this planet and Kermit shows up, to Tallahassee, insert bar, 30 years from now, does he still get a free beer? Like, I hope it would sustain.
Absolutely.
When that happened, you're just like, he was a freshman. You're like, I don't care what this kid ever does. He's the best. He's a legend. It doesn't matter what happens between now and the last time he plays for Florida State. This guy's a legend forever.
Yeah, man. And Kermit never made it big as a professional athlete. It certainly hasn't yet. So, obviously, you could buy, if Jameis comes rolling through, I'm sure he could get free beers wherever he wanted or free food or whatever. But it's like, man, that dude's made $100 million in his life.
Yeah.
Get Kermit a beer. Get Kermit a beer if he walks into your bar. That guy had maybe one of the 5 most memorable, well, I don't want to say that, one of the 10 or 15 most memorable plays in Florida State history.
Absolutely. He's actually, according to Wikipedia, he's on the Los Angeles Wildcats roster for the XFL. Maybe he'll be able to put a dagger into Bob Stoops and the Dallas Renegades once or twice.
Speaking of daggers, a quick Brady story before we sign off.
Please.
By the way, so Brady has now scored in double figures in 3 straight games.
Watch out. It must be that John Morant jersey paying dividends.
I'm telling you, it did something to him. Well, he patterns his game after him. I'm seeing it. He had this crazy reverse dunk, too. It came out of nowhere.
Okay.
So one of the sad things about my job, and I love my job and I love my life, but sometimes I don't get to see Brady play because I'm down here. So I'm in Tallahassee. So I was in Tallahassee on Saturday. His mom, Shanna, is watching he's got a basketball game against a pretty good team at Saturday afternoon. And so I'm on a walk. She texts me, and her report is 25-14 halftime, winning. He's made 1 or 2 baskets. He's got at least 1 or 2 steals, 1 or 2 rebounds. He's playing really well. Stat
stuffer.
Yeah, but 1 or 2. How? It's not like you're trying to keep track of Kawhi Leonard's buckets. 1 or 2, you can't keep track.
Was it 1 or was it 2?
Was it 1 or 2? So anyway, then I don't hear anything for an hour. Don't hear anything at all. No report at all.
Yeah.
And then Brady's coach texts me and says, he goes, Brady was clutch today. And then I texted Shanna. I'm like, hey, his coach just texted me and said that Brady was clutch. What does that mean? Yeah. And she goes, why don't you ask him? And not in a rude way, why don't you ask him what that means? I'm like, well, you were there too. And then the coach texted back and is like, yeah. He goes, I love that I can bark at him and he handles it really well. He takes it as constructive criticism and he plays really hard. And he goes, late in the game, the team was making a run and he hit 2 back-to-back baseline 18 or 15-foot jumpers.
My man.
While they were making a run. And he said the coach was like, they were daggers.
Yeah.
And so I texted Shanna. I copied the text and sent it to Shanna. And she goes, yeah, he actually made a couple really nice jump shots. He made a couple free throws. And I'm like, yeah, but they were daggers.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't know what daggers means.
Way to bury the lead, Shanna. Come on.
you mean you don't know what daggers means? Like, and I'm like, that means that, like, they were making a comeback and he stemmed the tide by ripping a couple of jumpers. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's what I meant by nice jump shots. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But anyway, so it's just crazy how, like, one or two baskets. I think he scored some points.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if I'm there, I'm like tracking every stat, every rebound, every assist.
Got the shot.
So yeah, that's three straight games. He scored 12. The last game I saw, he scored 12. Oh, by the way, and then we'll go because I just want to give one great youth sports story. They're playing a team that Brady's team's like the second best in the. It's a team of like 14. It's a league of like 14 teams.
Okay. So
there's some real good. There's some really good teams in this league. Well, they're playing, I guess, like the second worst team, and they're awful. They got this. It's 11 and 12-year-old. They got this big kid that literally, as soon as he got the ball over half court, he would just chuck it at the rim. And I'm talking, he's probably over 200 pounds.
Make it rain.
And would chuck it at the rim. And it didn't matter, like from Trae Young distance. Like he was shooting 34-footers. And it would just, and they weren't close. It wasn't like, oh, in and out. Oh, the iron was unkind there. They were knocking holes in the backboard. They were hitting off the backboard. So Brady's team would get the rebound. The kid would just stand there while Brady's team ran a fast break right by him for a layup on the other end. Well, anyway, at the end of the first quarter, it's like 22-4. Brady's team is winning. And there's 13 seconds left in the quarter. And the guy that's operating the clock is one of our parents. It's not supposed to be one of our parents, but nobody in their section would volunteer to do it. So our guy did it. And anyway, he's watching the game. He's caught up in the game, and he forgets to start the clock. So people start yelling, hey, clock. First it's polite, like, hey, man, clock. And then more people, clock. And then the coach literally walks up to him, the other coach, like 8 feet away from the scorer's table and screams, start the clock, as loud as he can. Like almost in the guy's face, start the clock. Meanwhile, keep in mind, it's 22-4. And his team has had the ball the whole time. And they've gotten like 4 offensive rebounds, so it actually helped them. But anyway, so he starts screaming, start the clock. And then he starts yelling at his parents. Like, see, the blue team, good job, blue, because that's the color Brady's team was wearing. Good job, blue. At least y'all had somebody to step up. Even if they're going to cheat, at least they're doing the clock. None of my parents will even do the clock. So I'm on the other side of the gym, but I can see there's a little talk going back and forth between the coach and the parents. Anyway, in the fourth quarter, when it's like 55-25, I see him take off his shirt. He takes it off and says, I'm done, and walks out of the gym with 3.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Just leaves the team on the court and walks out of the gym.
Gosh, youth sports are the best and worst of America.
Holy moly. I mean, it was crazy. And Brady had a buddy there that was watching the game, and his buddy went up to Brady. He's like, man, y'all beat them so bad the coach quit. I'm like, well, man, I don't think it was that. I think there was some. So anyway, a dad had to come in and sit on the bench for the final 3.5 minutes. And it was actually really cool. The parents from that team stood up. They all stood up behind the bench and started cheering and clapping every time they tried to make a play. But it's like, man, it's youth sports. Number one, it's just such a it's just a luck of the draw who you're going to get as a coach. Like, I love Brady's coach.
Yeah.
But if I'd have gotten that guy as a coach,
right,
who was cool with the biggest kid on the team, just literally chucking 25. He must have been 2 of 25 from 3-point range. I don't know that he ever stepped foot inside the 3-point arc on either end of the court. He would just get the ball and chuck it. They had 2 kids that shot every time. One kid would drive to the lane and throw it up over his shoulder. And like, this is game 11 or 12 or whatever. And it's like, imagine being the parent of one of the other kids that isn't shooting it every time. And they lost one game this year, like 47-9. Anyway, and I don't care about the results, but it's like, man, try to teach your kids the game of basketball, number one. And then what does it teach the kids to quit with 3.5 minutes? Just walk out. Like, I'm done. Sorry. So anyway, it's youth sports, man. Everybody listening to this that has kids in youth sports, and God willing, Aslan, one day you will too. You will have plenty of stories like this because, you don't have to take an IQ test, I guess, to be a coach of a little league team. And I just, I really hope, because I really like that organization and they do a really good job for the most part. I hope they give the parents their money back or like half off or something. Because what an awful experience that would be to have that guy as your coach.
Maybe they'll all rally together. This will be at the flashpoint for their bounce back.
Oh no, they're awful. They've got no chance. No, unless that kid start. Hey, maybe that kid will go 10 of 20 from 3. Then they're in the game. But you wouldn't believe it, man. He literally chucked up one. He got the ball 2 feet in front of half court, on the other side of half court, and chucked it. And it wasn't like the clock was running down. There's no shot clock. There was 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and he chucked it from 38 feet. Anyways, good time. But Brady scored 12 points, had a couple good assists. It's a good time.
All right, man. We are done. We'll be back later in the week. We actually had an interview with Chris Thompson. We'll probably let that one ride out for you folks at some point this week. We'll also do Renegade Express. I'll go down Thursday. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. He's Goran Maslan. Have a great Monday, everybody.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.